This year's CES in Las Vegas was expected to draw over 100,000 visitors, as well as 3,500 exhibitors and thousands of investors. Taiwan is represented, among others, by Taiwan Tech Arena, who said that they were taking 57 startups and 83 supply chain partners to Las Vegas. So why should Taiwanese startups fly halfway around the world for a trade show? And what should they do to prepare? Well, to tell us about Taiwan's presence at America's main tech event, we are joined from Las Vegas by two CES participants. Daniel Yeo, the co-founder and CEO of MetAI, a company exhibiting at this year's CES, and Andrew Lombard, founder and managing partner of the investment firm Tesoro VC. Andy, you've seen Taiwan's participation at CES evolve over the years. What kind of changes have you seen in that time?
There's always been numbers. There's always been a lot of startups, and it's been fantastic. Quality, depth. It's actually incredible. I think, Daniel, you're one of my shining examples of that. But there are many others. And as you say, you bet. As you said, Taiwan Tech Arena has done an incredible job, really codifying that and organizing that and presenting it and having it be digestible for investors like me to be able to go from booth to booth to booth and have very good, crisp discussions and know really where they're at. Taiwan did a really good thing this year from a VC perspective. I think it's going to be a trend. And each one of the companies, they've listed the company and then actually tell us what stage they're at, meaning pre-seed, Series A. You know, this is very important to us. We come there and look at that and say, hey, I'm a Series A investor. I want to go watch those guys. I'm a Series A investor, so I need to go talk to the seed guys so that I can invest in them later when they're Series A. So I think I just do a little shout out. Betty Tsu, Betty has done such a good job, and a shout out to Louis Chen, who leads the TTA effort under eTree. We're so fortunate, by the way, to partner with them, and I'd like to say that we're honored. But they have done, I think, one of the best jobs on any of the pavilions of any of the countries as I've looked at it. And there's some very good ones, like Korea and Japan are fantastic. But Taiwan should be very proud of that.
Well, Daniel, you are part of that Taiwanese representation at CES. You said you were right next to a boba tea stall. Very, very Taiwanese environment. Do you think that exhibiting within the Taiwanese pavilion, kind of having this very, very clear connection to Taiwan, is that helping startups like yours in terms of visibility, credibility, maybe access to partners?
The short answer to your question is yes. I think it helps a lot. After I really experienced this exhibition floor, and I believe that I currently believe that being part of the National Pavilion is very powerful, because I think when people come to this pavilion, they do have a clear expectation, because they would understand what are the strong skill sets of Taiwanese startups. Like, for example, Taiwan is strong in industrials. They are strong in hardwares, in manufacturing. So I think for industrial AI startups like us, like MetAI, I think that context actually helps immediately. Like, people actually get what we're trying to solve for industries, and it frames the conversation around real-world deployment, not just experimentations. So back to your question, yes, it helps a lot on us trying to frame ourselves as well as us trying to expose ourselves. Yeah.
Well, Andy, we talked a lot about trends and what to expect in 2026 and beyond. But do you think that any of those kind of big industry trends will have a knock-on effect on Taiwanese industries and Asia in general?
Well, I think it's happening now. I mean, 38%, I think, of the GDP of Taiwan of trade is going to the United States. And the reason for that is AI. AI is absolutely the master of everyone's domain right now. And Taiwan is leading that. Number one, TSMC. Number two, the growth of AI throughout the world. So I think the trend is incredibly positive for the country. And I think it is secure in that role for the foreseeable future, in my opinion. So from my perspective, though, what I think is a powerful, we'll call it a 1-2 punch, is the manufacturability and the AI of TSMC today, and the fact that both the government and also TSMC and other large corporations are leaning in to the innovation of new companies, to new startups, not just the $1 trillion of investments that are going for CapEx in the larger aspects, but focusing in on how do we invest in for the innovation of the future so that we can actually think 5 to 7 to 10 years down the road, saying who's our next largest customer, who's the next NVIDIA, who's the next Apple, and maybe who's the next MetAI.
Well, Daniel, Andy gave a few shout outs to some of the supporting staff that came with you startup founders to Las Vegas. But from your perspective, what concrete forms of support from the Taiwanese government and different organizations here do founders receive to help them exhibit at CES, to help them connect with that international crowd over there?
Yeah, I think they're trying to help in a lot of ways. And the first one is that I think they are trying to bridge the gap of cultural differences. And I think Taiwanese founders are or Asian founders overall doesn't necessarily fit into the startup ecosystem in the US, mostly because of the culture. So they had these like boot camps for storytellings, for how you reach out on sales deck, how you pitch people, right? So obviously, like all those boot camps, like you can select what you want, but they're trying their best to try to help Taiwanese founders on trying to scale globally.
Well, Andy, which of these steps matter to you as an investor? What preparation, what changes would you like to see from Taiwanese founders when they interact with investors at CES and other international events?
Yeah, I think it's Daniel's correct. I mean, focusing in on cultural and language, it's difficult, right? Because you want to articulate your story from a U.S. venture capital side in 30 seconds, 1 minute. You get these increments of time because it's just the unfortunate nature of who we are as U.S. VCs. We're very preoccupied. We're looking at in multiple directions. So to be able to articulate your story well becomes more important. I think the flexibility of Taiwanese founders knowing where they're at on that curve, because they might have fantastic technology and a great business model that could, in fact, grow into a very large company with investment from venture capital in the United States and the U.S. market. So they might have to be open to what that team looks like. Daniel, coming from the U.S., I don't worry about that. But there could be a need for Taiwanese companies to think, okay, who could be my business general manager in the United States, and then partner to go grow that and be able to articulate our wonderful story at the pace that USVC needs. I think that's a very important factor for U.S. growth, not just for Taiwan, by the way. This could be for Korean companies and Japanese companies that I work with a lot, or even European companies that are not, both culturally and language-wise, there yet. And we always say, be able to tell that story very fast. I mean, we used to call it the elevator pitch, but which floors are you going to? We almost have the patience from the ground floor to floor one. It's not like 5 floors. So it's that level of articulation of your story, I think, is really important, because there are great technologies that can convey to this U.S. market.
Well, Daniel, what goals did you have in mind when you were preparing for CES? What would you consider a success, and how should other Taiwanese founders kind of set their expectations? Not everyone will come back from Las Vegas with 5 investors lined up, after all.
Yeah, I think our main goals coming into CES was that we wanted to find potential customers because we are releasing our product. We announced our beta release at CES yesterday. So we wanted to find potential customers. We wanted to find strategic partners that we can go to market together with because our next milestone will be to scale in the US. So we're looking for people who are thinking seriously about deploying physical AI into the real world. That's one thing. And the other thing is that we are currently fundraising. So we wanted to also look out for potential investors that believe in what we're trying to build in Taiwan to the world. So yeah, those are the two biggest goals that I had before coming to CES. And I think from my perspective, I think CES is less about closing deals on the spot, but more about like starting the right long-term conversations, such as that between me and Andy. So I think a lot of Asian founders will think that, okay, what is the KPI coming into CES? Okay, I need to have 3 deals signed before I go back. I don't think that is the right expectation to go into the US market or go into exhibition floors like CES. I think you should have this mindset that you never know what will happen, what connection you will encounter when you come into these environments.
Well, Andy, for a startup founder here in Taiwan who wants to prepare for CES 2027, looking ahead already probably is a good idea. What concrete steps would you recommend they take to prepare for next year's event?
Daniel laid out a pretty good one. I think it is really understanding that we're not here to close deals. This is, in fact, the time of year where we're scouting and we're on super scout, which means I want to spend, and this is no disrespect, I want to meet founders and find out within 5 minutes or less and move on to the next one. But know that one sparked, that one I want to get to know better. And essentially, I think from a founder perspective, what you want to be able to do is articulate your story and know, as Daniel just said, you should never really try to think you're closing deals unless you are already at the stage with either a customer or an investor that's at that level. And that's very rare. You already know that. You already have your term sheets. You already have what's going on. So I think for me, the preparation side is to absolutely be very viral in the terms of, your ability to articulate your story to many, and then collect those. And then I would say be prepared, and as Daniel said, for the event, but also for me, the incredible work that's needed to follow up and to make sure you nurture those relationships that you've actually gotten, because that's the fruit of what you're doing. You're really out there, you're plowing plus you're planting. And then, you've got to come back and then say, okay, now how do I go harvest that? How do I go take the fruit and go make something out of it? And I think that's the really critical thing. We do the same thing. So we're looking at, maybe 60, 70, 80 companies, that we really like. So we've got to parse that and say, okay, now how do we go and follow up with those companies? And that's a really important aspect for us. And I think that's what the founders need to take into any of these types of large events.
Sounds like a lot of interesting opportunities for startup founders everywhere. We're almost out of time, but before I let you go, since CES is Consumer Electronics Show, or at least that's where the acronym originally came from one technology geek to 2 technology geeks that I have in front of me, what is the coolest coolest piece of consumer electronics that you saw from your own personal perspective? Let's step away from investment for a while. Daniel, what did you like the best?
Wow, I haven't gone through the show floor yet, so I don't know what's cool yet. But I have gone to the robotic side, and I think there are so many like imitation robots that are so cool, and that actually like stirs up my geek side of technologies. So yeah, that's cool.
Andy?
Yeah, I'm a golfer, hiker, skier with a bad back. So I saw right across from a booth that we were in for a while, an incredibly AI-driven pneumatic back that you just lay down and you could make it part of your couch. You could make it part of your bed. I was really impressed with that. I tried it and it was very good. So I think those simplistic ones. And I know you asked for one, but I do think the skeletal structures on the robotic side And I see that as game changing, and the ability to connect that with chips in the brain is going to be phenomenal. So I was pretty impressed. I'm glad it's coming out now. I didn't expect it in 2026.
Well, on top of all of the tech breakthroughs and the business trends that we see at CES, the event definitely has coolness going for it. And hopefully that will continue into the future. Thank you very much to both of my guests today, Andrew Lombard from Tesoro VC and Daniel Yeo, CEO of MetAI, both speaking to us from Las Vegas.